hold like a waiter, would hold a plate, and it literally just like it works parts of your arms that you would just never think to do. So anyways, it has all these different options that are just really great.
Adapts as you improve, tracks your muscle recovery. You can learn the movements the right way with 1,000 demonstration videos. So add Fitbod to your workout essentials. Join Fitbod today. Get your personalized workout plan. 25% off the subscription, or you can try the app for free at fitbod.me/boyscast. That is fitbod.me/boyscast. And boys, the warmer, sunnier days are calling, especially in New York, which I'm very happy with.
Dude, I've got my sandals on.
Which is why, no, you do. Which is why you want to fuel up with Factor's no prep, no mess meals. You don't want to be wasting all your time working away in the kitchen.
Nah.
When it's sunny.
Wicked wild, wild. Wicked wild, wicked wild, wicked wild, wild west. Jim West, Desperado, Rough Rider. No, you don't want nada. The Wild Wild West.
I'll take bad selfies and put them on the thing. That's a selfie.
Yeah, that's good.
That's a good.
You can't do that, man. You need to have good production. Your podcast is not going to work without production.
Sean said he's going to try to AI it so a mouth on the picture just moves all
That'd be
the time.
sick.
It'd be so tight. I'll give him like 4 different pictures. Oh,
We should start doing that.
yeah.
Like Family Guy, you know what I mean? How Family Guy would have like a cut to a joke that had nothing to do with the episode. Like if we
Yeah.
come up with a joke, we should have an AI
For
video.
sure.
to Jerusalem blocked. Yeah, that was the Arabs towards the Jews,
What were the convoys? What were the convoys doing?
Some of them were
Describe-
medical, some of them were supplying militaries. Yeah, varied.
Yeah, moving people and equipment around to make
Some
the
of them were
claims
civilians, some of them were
make the
buses.
claims of larger
Yeah.
territory than the UN was actually arguing for.
No, it was
Why did
because
they- why
right
did they-
after the
why-
partition plan
why
was
did they
rejected, the
establish
Arabs announced they were going to go to war. It was in preparation for the coming war because the Arab argument literally announced right after the rejection of the partition that they were going to go to war with Israel. So of course they're going to be moving arms around to defend themselves.
Also, why were those
course,
convoys
sure.
armed? Why did they armor the convoys? Was that just an immediate thing, or was it maybe because of previous things that happened to convoys that were not armed?
No, it's because obviously
Yes, there
people
was, but
opposed to settlers taking their territory. Obviously, Palestinians were shooting at them.
Okay,
The
that's
entire
military.
fucking
That would
time.
be military aggression. Yes, but that's the point. Is you keep on moving
Yes.
towards. First of all, because you keep on playing fast and loose with. First of all, trying to act as if the aggression in the 48 war was equal on both sides from the beginning, which it absolutely wasn't from after the partition plan. But then every time you're moved into that corner, you're like, oh yeah, but they were fighting against settler colonialism. So you can say it was fine. You can say it was justified for the ALA to move in and for people to attack these Jewish convoys and to attack these Jewish buses and settlements. You can say it was justified and it's understandable. But that's a different claim for what you're making earlier.
There was obviously a civil war in Palestine. Palestinians were losing. Other Arab forces got involved and sent reinforcements, tried to help them out. They still got their asses kicked. It was obviously based on a Zionist claim to the territory and Palestinians resisting it. Obviously, Palestinians resisted it for the same reason that the Lakota should have been shooting at Americans. So, yes, obviously, Palestinians shot back. If you're using
Not
them
shot
shooting
back,
as
initiated.
No, they did not initiate any more than the Lakota initiated war against the United States.
Okay, so in 47, the only pre-violence was the Jews being there as settler colonialists then? Is that the instigation then for the violence after the rejection of the partition plan?
And seizing land and expelling people and raping people.
Not expelling,
and stabbing
raping?
people
Okay.
and everything
All right.
else.
Okay.
I mean, there's tons of violence involved in this. The colonization process was not completely free of violence. And a lot of the violence visited against Palestinians during the 36 uprising was actually carried out by Zionists as well. Haganah collaborated extensively with the Brits in that. With a double agenda. They were stealing weapons and training and whatnot for their later fight, but they were collaborating in that and working with the British colonial authority. So the Palestinians felt themselves as colonized by two people at the same time, two forces, and didn't like either of them. So of course they're going to fight back. I mean, arguing that shooting back at people who are moving into a territory with the intent of seizing it is dishonest. If they were intent on staying Palestinians and accepting Palestinian citizenship and being Palestinian, there would not have been basis for a problem, and I would be blaming the Palestinians for all of this if they fought anyway.
So it should have been an Arab majority state. So you think it should be an Arab majority state with Jews a minority that the Jews should have accepted, right? Jewish Palestinians. That's what they would have been. Yeah.
If the Zionist movement had accepted being Jews within Palestine, then the blame for this would be on the fault of the Palestinians if they initiated combat. The fact that we have decades of statements from Zionists claiming that they are going to expel people and seize the land, you think Palestinians weren't literate?
You think it would have been? You think it would have been okay? So you think the solution would have been to have a single Palestinian state under the leadership of al-Husseini, because he would have been the leader?
No, obviously not. No,
a Nazi recruiter. Yeah.
No, and the Brits put him in that position anyway. No, I mean, obviously,
the Brits put him in that position, but he was popular. He was a pretty popular guy. He was the leader of he was the leader of the Arab Higher Committee. He wasn't like a nobody. They didn't just take him out of nowhere. He was a popular political figure.
Nobody, yes, but that's nothing to do with anything. Fuck him and fuck Ben Gurion.
You understand that al-Husseini would have been the leader of the state.
No, I don't, because no
negotiations in the 39 white paper
ever existed. No one ever discussed creating a Palestinian state other than the British government, and the British government never actually proceeded to develop those plans because they were already being derailed by the late 20s.
Why did al-Husseini reject the 39 white paper, which would have been an Arab state? I think it would have given Jews a veto. 5 years of Jewish immigration. Why did he not reject? Why did he reject that?
Because there was nothing in there about creating because
the 39 white paper, they offered them an Arab state.
It's not relevant to my argument. I'm saying
because
if Palestinians had accepted this, they did not. If they did not, and if they fought back, and if under people like al-Husseini they had started killing Jews who were perfectly willing to live in Palestine, then all the blame would be on his side.
Yeah, but al-Husseini rejected that state. He rejected a state in 39 because he wanted the immigration to stop immediately.
He did. And he is a fuckwit who has nothing to do with the argument I just made. I just said if Palestinians, the two-letter word, if Palestinians had accepted that and the Zionists had proceeded that way, then it would be their fault.
Since so that's where you get that problem, though. Is like, what else could the Zionists have done?
If you have 50 years worth of people saying, I'm going to drive you all off your land, then you get assholes like al-Husseini in power.
Al-Husseini wasn't popular because Jews were saying, I'm going to expel you. What?
You think that people didn't form a higher committee and start resisting it because the Zionists were saying they were going to expel people?
Because of Balfour, because of a Jewish state, not because there were loud calls in the 1920s from Zionists saying they were going to do a mass expulsion. No.
Yes,
like you read in those quotes earlier, even
the mandate includes the Balfour Letter. It folds it into it. So it explicitly acknowledged and endorsed a nationalist movement that was claiming a right to expel everyone from their land.
That's not true. If that was the case, then in 47, Resolution 181 wouldn't have included 45% of the people living in that mandated Jewish state to be Arabs. That doesn't make any sense. What you're saying was baked into the mandatory Balfour Declaration, then it would have been in 47, the Jewish state carved out would have been 100% Jews.
I don't think you had any idea what I just said because none of that is relevant at all to it.
You said that in 1917, the Balfour Declaration that promised the Jewish people a homeland in Palestine baked into it, rolled into it the idea of mass expulsion from Arabs in whatever state would be created. And then my response to that was that What?
Somebody said
I said nothing even close to that. I said that the mandate, that documents about the British mandate folded in the Balfour letter. The Balfour letter doesn't mention a state at all. It only says a national home, which could have been accomplished by a
I'm sorry. Can you
constitutional-
repeat what you just said? If I completely missed it, repeat what you just said then.
The documents forming the Palestine mandate included the paragraph of the Balfour letter in it.
Which it sounds
The
like you
Balfour
said
letter
earlier
was included in the
demanded mass transfer of Arabs.
Yeah, yeah,
No,
that part, and that's the editorializing. Yeah.
Are saying that the Zionist movement is calling for movement out of Palestinians, and the British acknowledged the Zionist movement in the structure of the mandate. The Palestinians were going to take it in only one way. Britain was trying to walk a fine line. They were trying to walk a tightrope and try to appease both sides, use the Zionists for their own cynical objectives there, and use the Palestinians for it. They were not, consciously trying to do one or the other. They were playing them off. They were using them both. But because of the way the mandate includes the Balfour letter, includes that text in the structure of the mandate, in its legal composition, and the mandate makes Hebrew one of the official languages, despite being less than 25,000 Zionists in the entire country. Most of the Jews at the time, the other 80,000 didn't speak Hebrew. They were Arab Jews. So only 25,000, but Hebrew was a co-equal, language with it. It sent a very clear signal to Palestinians that they were going to get fucked in this process, and they got angry. I'm not saying they did anything right. I think Palestinians consistently fucked themselves with terrible leadership, terrible ideas, and an inability to organize politically.
Yeah, I think it's okay to say that they saw they were going to get fucked because they were
understand why they were angry.
Jewish.
It's very easy to understand why they were angry and took back.
No, the problem is
All right,
that
guys, real quick,
you started by saying that they were announcing they're going to mass expel anyone, but then we moved on to they're going to carve out a Jewish state in the area, or the national homeland. But yeah, obviously those two things are different. I don't think in 1920 there were loud calls from the Zionists that they were going to do a mass expulsion. No.
Which was the original
always
claim.
discussion of it. I mean, from at least the time of Herzl, and it's implied earlier on. It's actually implied as early as Moses Hess in 1862.
How many times did Herzl ever mention transfer in his works publicly?
Zero. In his own works, he discussed it. He discussed it 3 times.
He discussed it in his diary about helping the penniless. He never mentions it in the Jewish state or the other one. No, he doesn't mention it in his books. No.
Yeah, in his books, he's only
comment in his
talking
diary.
about the colonizing process. He's talking about the pioneers.
Okay, so
He's
you
not
said
really
that they were
addressing-
talking about
he's not
transfer and
addressing
expulsion.
Palestinians.
So no, he didn't say
I'm
that.
gonna head
No.
out.
Okay.
All right, guys. I'm heading out. It's been like 4 hours. I gotta go. But if you ever want to do this again, let's do it. Liam, you're gonna stay on. I'll put on my phone. I gotta go to dinner right now. But I'll
If
see
you
you
guys
guys.
want to talk about this kind of stuff, if you guys want to talk about this kind of stuff, and if he wants me to pull out sections from books and different things, I'm always happy to do that sort of thing. I don't mind doing it. I have relatively little patience when people call me a liar, but that's fine. I'll try to control myself if people want me for things like this, but that's up to them. Either way, if you're taking off, I'll take off.
All right. Well,
Yeah.
thanks for the conversation. It's been fun to scream at each other.
All right, guys. Leonard,
Yeah.
Destiny. See you guys.
Have fun.
Take care, guys.
See ya.
Have a good one.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Hey.
Holy shit.
It's all right.
This is why I wanted. I was hoping that the debate between Finkel Muin and then Benny Morris, and maybe me, I guess, would look more similar-ish to me. But I feel like the thing that drives me crazy about this is I truly feel like the Arab side of history is completely rewritten every time people discuss this, and it's so frustrating because I think we agree on this, that there are valid criticisms of pre-Israel and definitely post-Israel Zionist behavior, but these people operate in an entirely factually different world, and it is so fucking frustrating. Holy shit.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of it is I don't know what you call this technique in arguments, but it's when people basically use poetry right? Like where their interpretation of every word is so loose and selective. So when we talk about the majority of the aggression from the 47 partition plan onwards came from the Arabs, like I'm clearly talking about military actions, like militias attacking locations and convoys. But it's like, but what about all the aggression of the Balfour Declaration and the settlement of Jewish state? I'm like, okay, well, fuck me. What can we?
When people start to play fast and loose with, especially because the timelines are pretty essential. And this idea that sometimes timelines are incredibly important, and then other timelines are like, who enacted violence in 47, first? And it's like, well, what do you mean first? Like Jews enacted violence in the 20s in this one time. And it's like, wait, why? Like the broadening and the narrowing of the time span, and then the claims that are made and extrapolated from, like, there are valid claims. I think there are even defensible claims you might be able to make from the pro-Arab side, where you say, even if the Arabs would have been partners for peace, I think that Israel still would have been a bad faith partner, that they would have attempted to instigate things. Like, I think that's probably an argument that you can make. But when you start with, well, the Arabs just, didn't have any choice but to do anything, and Israel was always going to conquer all the fucking land, and it's like, how can you possibly say this? And then this guy's a PhD historian, and he's like confidently asserting to me this massive historical counterfactual that he's saying 100% would have happened. Like, how the fuck could you possibly know that?
Yeah, that thing about the 47 partition, it's because there's no government meetings of them saying we're going to this acceptance of the partition plan is just a meme. Like, there's none of that. What do you think about that Ben Gurion thing that I mentioned at the beginning, with the idea that, that they consider the Arabs the aggressors and the Jews defend themselves, but also that's only half of it, because we attack them politically, like we aggress on them politically, and they defend themselves from us.
About Ben Gurion saying that?
Yeah, 38, he said that.
My take on a lot of my take is that these are my broad feelings, okay? Is that from up until 1920, I think it feels like Jews had this kind of delusional idea that if they just started buying land and kicking people off, eventually they'd all kind of fuck off and it'd be okay. And that from 1920 to the 1930s, they were like, okay, well, there's kind of problems, but the Brits are cool with us and we'll figure this shit out, and maybe we can, I don't know, maybe we got to kick some people out. And then past the Arab revolts and then the Brits cracking down on immigration, the Jews are like, okay, well, this is fucked, and they're all attacking us and killing us, and now it looks like we're gonna have to fight. And then the ideology of the Jews that they adopted from the 40s onwards was basically okay, listen, okay, we're going to tell the people, guys, this is what we're going to get, and keep our aspirations high, and don't worry, no external party will ever tell us this is our only borders. And internally they were like, okay, what we're going to do is we're just going to maintain our defensive posture. We're going to work well with the international community. We're going to look to the West for diplomatic and military partners, because we know that every single thing we do is going to trigger the fuck out of the Arab population here so much, they'll always give us an excuse to expand. And that's what our future expansion is going to look like. It's going to come through the lens of Arabs being unable to accept us diplomatically no matter what. So it allowed the Jews more flexibility than maybe what was honest. So when Jews accept the 47 partition plan, you could argue that if the Arabs would have said oh, us too, that the Zionist leaders might have been like, oh shit, I didn't know that was going to happen. Okay, well, fuck, now we're in a really weird spot. And they would have been in a weird spot, but they didn't. They always knew that they could plan on the Arabs rejecting every plan for peace or every partition out of hand, because they didn't want a Jewish state there ever. That's essentially, I think, how the expansion of Israel happened up through the 60s, yeah.
Yeah, because I always wonder why no one ever brings this up. I feel like it's a really good kill shot, but it's quite clear that the Zionists had, well, I don't know if they wanted a war in 47, 48. I
think they wanted a couple years, but they did eventually. Yeah, they didn't want that.
The war kind of was an opportunity for them in that way, because they, I don't know why the pro-Palestinians never bring this one up, but the original plan after the partition wasn't to just renege on it and invade anyway. But they did originally plan to not give the Arab citizenship, the ones in the Jewish state. Do you know about that?
Yeah, I think it was up until 67. I don't think they were 66. Yeah, they were even given citizenship. They said they were going to, but they lived under military law essentially. And it wasn't until right before the 6-Day War that they actually got citizenship. Yeah. Yeah,
and that was actually a cabinet meeting right after the partition plan being accepted. Was they were like, we're not going to give Arab citizenship, and the whole idea was that because we're expecting a war, war. If the Arabs aggress on us within the Jewish borders, we can only imprison them. Whereas if they're not citizens, we can expel them. Like it was literally, they were planning to, like they were literally preparing themselves to expel Arabs in the context of a war. But again, no one seems to bring that one up. I feel like that'd be a really good argument. I don't know.
There's a lot. There are a lot of decent arguments. Yeah, from 48 onwards, there were a lot of peaceful Arabs that tried to just walk back to the land that Israel controlled because they're like, hey, can we just like come back? And I'm pretty sure the newly formed state of Israel killed all of them. They shot. If you were trying to come back to your home that you got expelled from, they fucking shot and killed you. And a question you could ask there is, listen, these are peaceful villagers coming back. Why the fuck would you kill just ordinary people trying to come back to their villages, right? Yeah. Leading up to the 6-Day War, I'm pretty sure Dayan, I think, is even on record. Moshe Dayan is saying things like, yeah, we knew that if we like went and farmed a little bit more to the north, that like Syria would start like shooting at our fucking tractors. So, you know, we kind of did that and they got really mad and it kind of worked to like instigate, like, yeah, you can find quotes that show evidence of like Israel as having some aggressive tendencies, but you can't even, they don't know, they don't have any of this. The idea is just that Jewish people are monstrous, snaky, crazy people that were always lying about fucking everything. And the Arabs were just these poor innocent victims the entire fucking time who just wanted peaceful democracy. It's like, just like, what the fuck?
There's a really interesting Dayan quote from 50 something when they're about to do an incursion into Gaza because of like counter-attacking Fedayeen and shit.
Yeah.
And he gives this whole speech about how like these people have no love for us. Like they all want us dead and they have a good reason for it. Actually, we took all their land. Look at that village over there. That's built on top of an old Arab village. Like look at that town over there that we just built like a few years ago. What do you think was on there before?
Yeah.
He goes to this huge rant, like very like strangely empathetic with why the Arabs hate them. And then he finishes this whole spiel by saying, and that's why when we go in there, we need to give them hell because they won't give us any mercy. I'm like, holy shit, you know?
Yeah.
Because the way I see it is that I don't really know how much I blame the Zionists themselves for, especially from where they were in 47, because they had nowhere else to go. Like even though they did want to remove Arabs and they did want to take territory, their main thing was survival because they knew that under al-Husseini they'd all die probably, or get kicked out.
Lawson Harrison, thanks for the $100, buddy.
I always wanted to ask Benny Morris this as well: is if Jewish emancipation in like this 1870s in Europe was actually real and they had citizenship and they were actually equal citizens, not just on paper, do you think Zionism would have still been a legitimate cause?
If there would have been like a one state with Jews and Arabs living together, or if there was
if Jews in Europe and the Muslim world were actually just equal citizens, like not subject to pogroms and shit,
Fuck, I don't know. That's a hard one. Because it's
Why is it hard?
Well, because like everything is like push-pull factors, right? So like I think that the Holocaust and everything accelerated a lot of the like desires to live in Israel. I think that was like, yeah, we're getting fucked everywhere. Like we need a home that like is safe for us. And I think it also probably gave foreign nations like more of a feeling of like a moral reason to kind of support Israel. It's like, well, fuck, we feel bad. You guys kind of got completely, ass fucked. But like absent the Holocaust and absent, so much Jewish discrimination, would they have felt as much of a need? I don't know. I'm not sure. Keep in mind, you don't have to eliminate all of it. You would just have to eliminate enough of it such that it wouldn't have been viable to resist the Arab presence there, right?
Yeah. I don't see what the point it would have been if they were just an equal minority that was like fairly well respected in the
point is that
in the Arab and European world.
I think I'm still working my way through World War I and shit, but I think there was like a general idea that like, I think as nation states started to develop that like ethnic groups or like nationalities of people or whatever, I think they all started to want their own countries. They were like, hey, like I want a country for me and I want a country for me. And that like, especially with the breakups of these bigger countries and people fighting over stuff, and then like all the, like even the Turkish people after World War I fought their big war to have like their borders, everything. And I think that, that was a feeling that people had. Like, here's a question. I don't think Kurdish people experienced like widespread harassment or racism or whatever across the world.
I don't know around the world, but definitely we're in the part of the world that they live in. Yeah,
sure.
Iraq,
because if you were to tell Kurdish people like, why don't you guys just like move to Europe? Like you guys would be way more chill there. Like people aren't gonna fucking kill you all the time. But they'd probably say like, they're like, well, we want our own government. We're the Kurdish people. We want our state. We want to live here. This is like our area. But Jews didn't technically have that, right? Because they went there.
No. But that's why I feel like part of that thing with the nation state and all these like minority groups wanting to have their own area is because I feel like it's because of persecution. It's not just like a random desire,
Is there
And I
an
think
example of any other state, just on that, is there an example of any other state being built similar to Israel like that, or?
There's no analogy, I don't think, to Israel. Not that I can think of.
Yeah.
But I think it's that general idea, though, is I think if Jewish people in Europe were not persecuted and thrown around all over the place for 2,000 years, because they were basically permanent refugees almost from the collapse of the Kingdom of Israel all the way until like 1890, right?
Yeah,
They
but that's
were never
relatively
really-
unique. When you say permanent refugees, it's because somehow they still held on to those like cultural aspects of whatever meant to be Jewish, and they didn't just like fully integrate into wherever they went, right?
Yeah, they would say next year in Jerusalem at their
Yeah.
Passover shit, and I think the Israeli national anthem is literally like a song from some person who is hiding away from a Russian pogrom, and it's like longing for the homeland, and it's like really sad and shit. But yeah, I think that's the idea, is that were it not for that discrimination, I feel like the cause would have just been completely like pointless.
It's possible, yeah.
But then you also run into issues like fucking Lebanon, where the Christians might have had a good reason to want their own nation state because of the Ottomans and the famines and shit, but having it also meant they had to grab a bunch of farmland, which meant bringing in a bunch of Sunnis, and then because of the British and the French fighting over south of the Litany, it meant they had to take in a bunch of Shias and then Palestinian refugees, and it's like, well, this has to be it has to be a multicultural state, or it's going to collapse. You know, like
Yeah.
yeah.
And then it's also hard to tell that like I would have to know the histories of every country's individually, but it feels like after the collapse of the Ottoman Empire, the borders drawn were a little bit arbitrary. Like when you have like straight lines, right? It's obvious that like somebody on a map is like doing borders. And for some countries, it seems like it actually worked pretty well. When you look at like Jordan, and if you look at like Iraq and Syria, like I'm not saying they're like super stable countries, but I mean like for the most part, the borders haven't changed. Even Iraq and Iran didn't like change borders, you know? But then you look at places like Yemen, and no stable government has emerged from there. Or Syria took a long time to have like a stable government emerge. But like your monarchs in like Jordan and Saudi Arabia and Qatar and the UAE, I think are a lot more stable. I don't know why it is in some places and why it's not in others. I don't know the answer to that. I don't know if there's like a good reason why in some places, even in Iraq, I think, right? I think the leadership was relatively stable, right? Compared to Yemen and Lebanon and Syria.
Yeah, I'm not really sure why for each one. For Lebanon, it's really clear. It's because there were three groups that were each made up about a third of the population, with some variants, and that was just doomed to fail. And also, every country surrounding them had an interest in it. I don't know. It's weird because, like those borders were literally just drawn up by politicians, half of who were drunk in like 1918, 19. But people adopted nationalism for each of those countries like really, really quickly. The fact that like Syria and Iraq both had Ba'ath Party leaders who were pan-Arab, but they just never unified or never even considered any kind of like union. Yeah, that's just really odd to me.
Yeah. Which is weird too, because you heard that a lot as one of the reasons to get rid of the Israelis is like, oh, pan-Arabism, but it's like, well, where the fuck is your pan-Arab state? Like, where did? It's not like it was all there except for Israel. So, yeah, it is the drive of having your own country with your own borders and your own government is a pretty strong one, I think, for a lot of people.
I think it's also that idea that there was Jewish aggression against the British before the White Paper I don't think that's true.
Yeah, and it's also the issue that I have too when people are like citing these things is that, and then I get angry because somebody's like, well, somebody showed you a citation of that. Would you flip your whole mind? And it's like, it's hard because my whole concept of what's going on there wouldn't allow for that. Like maybe like one or two like off terrorist attacks, maybe, but I'm pretty sure the Jews were pretty happy with the Brits up until like was it 44 or 1940? I think it might have. When the
that's the White Paper, because like Zionism was abandoned.
Sure.
On, yeah.
And it's like, why would the Jews be terrorists attacking the Brits? But like after the 40s, well, now I know why. Of course, they're limiting immigration. That makes a lot of sense now to say that. But when you're starting to make these claims like, oh no, the Jews have always been attacking the Brits, like, well, that's kind of weird. I don't understand why. Do you have like any examples of that? Also,
I think the answer is in the 30s, some of the extremist Zionists did have issues with the British. One, because they were revisionists. They wanted all of the Jordan, or they wanted everything east of the fucking Jordan River as well, right?
Who did?
Irgun. But they got the Irgun, the revisionists, yeah. They wanted everything. And they resented, obviously, like the leftists like Ben Gurion for that. And they also felt like the British were not really protecting them from Arab violence. So like say like the Jerusalem riots in 1920, the British actually stopped Jewish militias from entering the space to protect people who were being attacked by rioters. So there was a bit of resentment there, but obviously that source of resentment massively changes after 39 when the Brits aren't supporting Zionism anymore. But that was it was always like a minority anyway. Like the Yishuv hated the Irgun. Like they literally fought with them and shit.
Yeah.
Like Ben Gurion sank one of their boats. Yeah. What are you gonna say?
I'm getting really frustrated. This is like it's blackpilling the fuck out of me on academics who don't have any material to cite. I don't understand why you would waste so much time and money on a degree just to say, "Well, go read this whole book." Like, what are you doing with your? What are you doing? What is the point of you being an expert at that point? The whole point is that you've already read the material and that you can like direct me to it or reference it instead of saying, well, here's 5 books and this is what people think. That it drives me so fucking insane. I don't understand that at all. Holy shit.
I don't really.
You said you play guitar, right?
Yeah.
Like imagine somebody asks you like, how do you resolve a dominant, I'm sorry, my training is a closet. Like, how do you resolve a dominant 7 chord? Or what does a secondary dominant look like? And I'm like, well, why don't you go read a book on Schenkerian analysis, you fucking retard? Like, what the whole point of your education is that you know the answers and you can reference them. You can explain it exactly. Not like vague, like swaths of like, oh, well, here's 7 books. It's in one of these. And like this happened from the 20s to the 40s. Like, fuck, it's so frustrating to me. Oh my God.
Yeah, it's I feel like conversations like that make me feel very okay about not going further with academia. Because I could have, long time ago. There were actually 2 villages where the Haganah attacked before 48, not 1. Fuck.
Way to go.
Dead.
Yeah, now you're totally fucked.
Toasted. Actually, one of them was a response to the Haifa refinery massacre. I didn't know that.
Oh.
All right.
All right.
You're talking at Breaking Points tomorrow.
Yeah, I was supposed to do my final day of research and I fucking just skipped all of it to waste my time with this stupid shit. So fuck me.
Yeah, I just had a debate about the whole, like, is it a genocide thing today as well? I'm kind of annoyed by that because I put up this tweet from the ICJ judge saying that we didn't say it's a plausible genocide or whatever the fuck. And then obviously people are mad. And then the problem is that I got a bunch of fucking like hardline Zionists retweeting it saying, look, the court ruled there's no genocide. And I'm like, yeah, they didn't fucking say that
They didn't
either.
rule on it. Yeah, that's stupid. Yeah, Jesus Christ.
So yeah, I'm getting, and this is happening more and more as like I fight with leftists and a bunch of fucking like right-wing Zionists come in and I'm like, fuck me. Like I'm really am going to become a both sides-er soon enough.
Yeah, I remember on Twitch when I used to argue against like when the softcore porn started, and I was like, this is kind of gross. And then like a whole bunch of people retweet me and agree, and then they'd start tweeting pictures of women just like wearing ordinary shirts, and it's like, yeah, get these sluts off the platform. I'm like, no, not like that. Jesus Christ. Yeah.
Yeah, housekeeping. Okay.
It's so annoying. I'm just gonna say this forever until I die, I guess, or like make my own fucking world. Or maybe I'll do enough drugs. It's just so annoying because like. This is a masturbatory position, I guess, but like this conflict is rich with a lot of different interesting arguments that you can explore about colonialism and displacement of people and, you know, what's right, what's wrong, what's just. Like if I go into a bar knowing this guy's going to attack me and I bring a knife with me to stab him, am I at fault or is he at fault, right? There's so much interesting stuff to talk about in this, but it's just the historical side on the pro-Arab stuff is just delusional and there's nothing to engage with. Like, oh, well, I guess the whole history is just Jews are racist against Arabs and wanted to kick them all out and did violence for no reason and was supported by the United States and Great Britain from 1880 and onwards. And wow, I guess they're just the bad guys. And it's like so fucking retarded. It's so stupid.
Yeah, I've started noticing. He mentioned Ilan Pape, and I've kind of caught him doing the thing again where he has like footnotes and they just lead you to something that says the complete opposite of what he's saying.
Something that was very. Is, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Yep. No. Go.
One of Pape's thing is he mentions 30 dead babies in one of the massacres, one of the villages, even though the actual number is like 2. And I was like, fuck, is there actually a 40 beheaded baby story from like the 48 war in one of Pape's books? But yeah, and obviously the footnote doesn't say anything of the sort. But
yeah, I know he got in big trouble for that Ben Gurion quote from the diary and the scratched out shit, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think Benny Morris made that mistake as well at one point, and right wingers went absolutely ham on him because of scribbled out writing, and it's like depends on how you read it. Yeah.
The funny thing for that Pape book, what's it called again?
Ethnic Cleansing of Palestine.
So I was reading through there because I was trying to see because since they gave me that book, fine. Like if you want, I'll read out of your. I'll read out of your source, and we'll do that. And it's very interesting that in reading his characterization of the war in that started in 47, he basically just like skips the first 10